Hi, I'm Eric Summerer, and here's what's coming from the Dice Tower this week.
Hey folks, welcome to the news for June 24th, 2013. We are almost halfway done with the year. I'm very excited. This is going to be a very busy week here at Dice Tower because we're prepping for the Dice Tower convention, which is happening next week in Orlando, Florida. Totally sold out convention. I hope several of you who are watching will be there. It'll be a lot of fun. But there's other things also. I just want to remind you, last week we put out the Origins Summer Preview. And in the Origins Summer Preview, Eric Summerer and I recorded previews with many of the sponsors at Origins, and they talked about games that have just come out or games that are about to come out. Many of those games that we talked about in the Origins Summer Preview, you'll be seeing reviews of over the next several weeks. I also want to remind you guys that you can always listen to DicetowerAudio.com. Dice Tower Audio is basically the audio version of videos. Not as good, I think, because you need to see the pictures, but I put up the news, I put up the some of the stuff from last week will be there, selected reviews we put up, so there's always that. Let's get started. In news for the week, there was a lot of new Kickstarters that were started, which of course is basically saying like there was a lot of air to breathe last week. But some of the ones of note, Viva Java the Dice Game is up there. That looks good. I'm always a sucker for dice games. Keyflower has an expansion that Game Salute put up. And City Hall, which was a game that did not pass through its Kickstarter phase, although, the designer really pushed it. Everyone who played it said that they really liked it. Well, now it's being redone through Tasty Minstrels, so you'll have an opportunity to check that one out, City Hall. The Diana Jones Awards nominees were nominated, and this is a very strange award. Basically, they nominate whatever they want in gaming. It's about excellence in gaming. The award itself comes from the burned cover of an Indiana Jones source book, but the IN was gone, so it's Diana Jones. And they've nominated different things in the past. 2 board games have won in the past, Dominion, and I forget the name. I forget the other one, but there was a couple board games that have won. But people can win it. RPGs can win it. Conventions, for example, this year the nominees are Dog Eat Dog, which is a role-playing game. Love Letter, the card game. Metanopia, which is a convention that designers went to and pitched their games to different publishers. Playing at the World, which is like it's a book, which is a history of role-playing gaming, and the Tabletop Gaming Series. Now, I do not know who the judges are. They're anonymous. I don't know what they're trying to do. So it's kind of weird to compare these things together. Like, how do you put Tabletop, the mini-series, web series, up against Love Letter, the game? It seems kind of odd. If I was a betting person, I would put my money on Tabletop doing the best in this one in regard. We'll have to wait and see. And then, even though I'm not a huge HeroClix follower on this show, and probably many of you aren't either, they're coming out with Pacific Rim HeroClix, which just seems cool. Will that take the place of Monster Apocalypse, which never really got off the ground? We'll have to wait and see. For news of the week, Days of Wonder has announced a brand new game, and this is always a big event because Days of Wonder does not make dozens and dozens of different games over the course of the year. They put out 1 or 2, and they haven't put out a new game in a while. And each time they put out a game, it's a big deal. Ticket to Ride, Memoir 44, Shadows over Camelot, Small World. Not every single one of their games has been as well received. Cargo Noir didn't do that well. And Cleopatra, the Palace, beautiful components, but just didn't do so well. But still, if there's one thing we do know, it's that the components are going to be fantastic. The game this time is called Relic Runners. This is the first time that Days of Wonder has worked with a new designer, Matthew Dunstan. I looked him up, can't find anything else he's done. But Relic Runners is a 2 to 5 player game, which they say will take between 40 and 80 minutes. It's about exploring through a jungle, and the pieces are just amazing looking. So I'm very excited about this one. Looking forward to that. Incidentally, if you listen to Board Game University this Thursday, Mark Kaufman is my guest. He's from Days of Wonder, and we briefly talk about this game, but we also talk about other things that Days of Wonder has done over the years. So it's an interesting thing. You should be listening to Board Game University anyway. Great interviews with designers and publishers. I'm really excited about the reviews that are coming this week. Most of them are coming from Nat Shelf, although they might come from down here too. We have I'm recording all my reviews this week and the following week, so all the games that you see here will be reviewed either this week or you'll see them the following week when I'm at Dice Tower Convention, but a lot of great games. In the Dice Tower Network, lots of different podcasts this week. Shut Up and Sit Down did a whole rapid review special where they went through and did several, I think 6 reviews in 15 minutes of different games on video. That's pretty impressive. Gameopolis number 27 was released where they talked about filler games, the games you play in between other games. Secret Cabal number 44, they take a look at Rune Wars, which we've known from past episodes that they're big fans of, so good to hear that. Flip the Table number 31, where they take a look at terrible games. This week takes a look at Space Jam, the board game. I do like that movie. D6 Generation 127 has Rafe Hollywood Granger on, and they take a look at the state of miniature gaming. Rolling Dice and Taking Names, number 15, and they talk about Origins, which is great because one of the hosts, Marty, helped us out quite a bit at Origins, and we appreciate that. Party Gamecast, number 12, they talk about barbecue games and Tichu and dominoes. Snakecast number 13 is out, where they talk about cooperative games. And then a couple podcasts that are about to come out. Longview has a podcast coming out this week where they talk about Fleet. I don't know if it's been out long enough to have a Longview, but special guest Joel Eddy. And Dice Tower number 311 will be out this week, in which we just go to town talking about Origins and all the games and things that we saw there. It was a lot of fun to put that episode together. Alright, it's time to take a look at yet another shelf and see why do I keep the games that I keep on this shelf. Well, we'll start over here with the Inland Port, the 2-player Le Havre game from Z-Man Games. It's just a very fun 2-player game. I like keeping around 2-player games, and I don't have room to keep tons of them, so I keep around the ones I like the best, and this is one of those. Underneath that is Wild Fun West. Now, Wild Fun West is great because it can go up to 8 players, which is a really good thing. And it has that feel of a fun, big party-style type game, and it's auctioned too. It's just an interesting, unique game, so that's why it stays in my collection. Smash Up, pure fun. Just a lot of fun to throw cards down. I like the idea of Smash Up. Blood Bowl Team Manager, I really enjoy the theme of building your teams as the game goes by, and it works really well as a 4-player game. Star Wars X-Wing, of course, I just love the Star Wars ships. I think I would keep it even if I wasn't a fan of the game, and the game is quite good. Leapfrog is an unusual game, one that very few people have. It's the first Fragger games. People know them today for their bigger games like Poseidon's Kingdoms, their sheep game, and they have all the games are about animals. Leapfrog was about frogs jumping each turn. It's a 6-player game, which is a lot of fun, and you try to keep your frog out of the frying pan. Although those come in a video game case, which is interesting. Pastiche is a great family game. I just like it. It's one of those gateway games that I would use. Flashpoint, very similar, except Flashpoint is a cooperative game, and I love the theme of Flashpoint, the putting out fires. Dungeon Fighter is a silly throw dice game, and I love the silliness factor of it, so that's why I keep it. And then The Legend of Drizzt and Wrath of Ashardalon, both those there. Those boxes are very heavy and full of tons of pieces. Not only do they include both of those games, but they also have Castle Ravenloft in there. And then all the different painted miniatures that came with the dungeon game that Wizards put out this past year. So there's a lot of things in there. I like this, not as a dungeon crawl game, but as a great cooperative game. And it just looks really cool and has a ton of variety. And that's why I keep the games on that shelf. Everybody has games that they would like to see reprinted. Although, honestly, for those of you watching, you're living in a golden age, in a sense, because this is no longer a problem. There was a long, I remember between the period of, let's say, 2000 and 2008, where there were constantly people making lists up on the internet about, oh, I wish these games would be reprinted. We did it ourselves in a Dice Tower. Games we wanted to see reprinted. And of that list of games that I wanted to see reprinted, almost every single one was then reprinted. Some companies came around with the sole purpose of reprinting games, like Valley Games and Stronghold Games, although Stronghold Games started publishing their own games as time went by. But still, Fantasy Flight picked up a lot of these games, and it was a fantastic thing. But it's still impossible for all these games to remain in print at the same time. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to go to Cool Stuff, for example, and see all the games that have ever been designed. And many times you'll go there looking for your favorite game and it's out of print or out of stock. Well, there's two things about this. I want to talk about one this week, and we'll talk about the other next week. Next week, we'll talk about the deeper thing, what do you do when there's no reprint? But the other one is this, and that is when people come to me and they are fairly angry at companies because they say, how can that company run out of their games? Didn't they know that this game was going to sell so much? Are they deliberately holding back? Well, I can't speak for every company in existence, and for all I know, I think it's possible that some companies, Games Workshop, might deliberately keep the amount of games that they put out low to bring up the value of them. But I do not know that any companies do this. I will say this, the problem with companies, when the publishers, when they put games out, is it's very difficult to determine how many to put out. So let's say you're going to publish a game. We have a brand new game called Greatest Game Ever, trademarked. And so we're going to put out this game, Greatest Game Ever, and I want to publish it, but I have no idea how many copies to make. So I kind of do research and play games, and people really like the game, and I think that 5,000 copies will be enough. So we go ahead and print these copies, and printing copies isn't just like print them and then they're out tomorrow. This is a month's process, sometimes longer to print the copies and get the games out. So the games come out, we make a buzz, the game comes out, and a couple things happen. One, the game sells really well and sells out, which then infuriates people because they say, oh, I wanted to buy this game and I can't find it anywhere and blah, 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 blah. Well, the company did not know the game did that well. Had they known the game did that well, they would have printed many more copies so that they could make more money. It's just common sense. At the same time, though, a company can't and shouldn't print 20, 30,000 copies of an untested game, because what if it doesn't do well? Well, if a game doesn't do well, then you see that game sitting around for years and years and years as it trickles out, and that takes up a storage room. You're eventually forced to sell the game at a loss just to get rid of the game, and it becomes, or you give it out free at conventions or what have you. So it's a very difficult process to find that magic number. What you'd like to do is to sell the very last game that you produced to the last person in the world who would ever want the game. And then if people want the game in the future, there's probably, some people say, I really wish I had that game. You have to kind of gauge the fact, how many people really want this game? Is it thousands and thousands, or is it 50? They just happen to be really loud on the internet. And I'll delve into that more next week. But I just want people to realize that it's difficult for publishers to come into this. And so people say, oh, where's that game? They advertised it so much and then it was out of print. Why didn't they make more of them? Well, they want to. And if the game has that high of a demand, they're trying to get it turned around. But these things take a long time with the high cost of fuel these days. And you cannot airship things. You have to send them by the slow boats, and that takes a month or so. Add it to the production costs, and many of these companies that are making games have a queue now of games that are in them to put out. So either way, my thing that I would say, and I'll say the same thing next week when we talk about the topic further, is that it's simply this. If there are games that you are dying to play and they are out of print right now, I'm sorry. They hopefully will come back in print soon, and then you can buy them. But there are so many other games that you can be playing meanwhile. Your life is not going to be on hold because you can't get the latest copy of whatever hot game, the greatest game ever, that just came out, and everyone seems to have a copy but you. Probably someone in your game group already has it anyway, and if they don't, well, there are plenty, hundreds, thousands of other games that are available for you to play meanwhile. So there's no possible way you can be bored, and if it was that one game that was fulfilling your need, well, then you probably need to seek some help anyway, because there's just so much fun stuff out there. So my thoughts on this are this: if there's a game that you want and you're ready to buy it, and you go to the online store and it's not there, and you say, oh, what do I do? Go play some other games. Just wait patiently. And don't put it in your mind. Don't sit there and, I wish I could play, I wish I could play, I wish I could play. I mean, that's, the anticipation is fun, but at the same time, just play the fun games that are already out there. It will come out eventually. Well, that's it for this week. More news coming out. My goal this week is to put out, I think, 18 reviews, maybe, or 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 15 reviews. So I need to get started on those. You also see several previews. My contributors will have some reviews out. There's a lot of great stuff on this video channel, including a top 10 list coming out tomorrow. Top 10 essential games that every single person should own. That'll be coming out tomorrow. And until then, plenty of stuff on the Dice Tower Network to check out. We'll see you guys next time.
To find out more about all of our podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. To see a listing of our videos, head to dicetower.com. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cool Stuff Incorporated, where you can buy games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.
Shut the door.